New Year's Eve, dinner at my childhood home in suburban Columbus, Ohio. 37 family members crowded around the mahogany dining table that belonged to my late grandmother. Golden candles flickered across white linen, while my 8-year-old adopted daughter Emma walked toward the decorated children's section. My sister Sarah's biological daughter already sat there arranging her napkin. Then my mother Patricia suddenly grabbed Emma's thin shoulder, shoved her backward with surprising force, and declared in a voice that cut through every conversation, "This seat is for a real granddaughter." Emma tumbled onto the hardwood floor, her forehead striking the sharp corner of the antique coffee table. Crimson blood trickled from her nose as every relative froze in stunned silence. My world shattered completely. I dropped my wine glass and rushed toward Emma, while 37 pairs of eyes watched us like spectators at a car accident. The crystal shattered against the oak floor, but nobody moved to help. My wife Jessica appeared instantly, wrapping Emma in her arms and guiding her toward the powder room, while whispering gentle reassurances that everything would be okay. "Patricia, what the hell was that?" I demanded, facing my mother, who stood rigid beside the children's table. Her silver hair remained perfectly styled despite the chaos she'd just created. "That child needed to understand her place," my mother replied coldly, smoothing her burgundy dress. "I won't have her confusing my real granddaughter about family hierarchy." The blood pounded in my temples as I processed her words. Family hierarchy. Emma had been my daughter for 3 years, adopted legally and completely. Yet my mother spoke as if she were some temporary visitor. "Emma is your granddaughter," I said through clenched teeth. "She's been part of this family since she was 5 years old." My Uncle Richard cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Actually, Anderson, your mother warned us there might be some issues tonight. She mentioned the adoption situation could create problems. The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. "Warned you? What did she tell you?" Patricia lifted her chin defiantly. "I simply explained that adopted children often have behavioral difficulties. I've been researching the statistics, Anderson. These children come from damaged backgrounds and frequently act out during family gatherings." Jessica emerged from the bathroom with Emma, whose nose had stopped bleeding, but whose eyes remained wide with confusion and hurt. My wife's expression told me she'd heard every poisonous word. "Patricia has been making phone calls," Jessica whispered to me, "for weeks now. Your brother Mark suddenly uninvited us from Christmas. Your sister Linda stopped responding to my texts completely. I thought they were just busy with holiday preparations." The puzzle pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. My mother hadn't acted impulsively tonight. She'd been orchestrating this humiliation, systematically turning family members against us through calculated manipulation. "Grandma Anderson," Emma said softly, approaching Patricia, with the innocent hope that only children possess. "Did I do something wrong? I can sit somewhere else if you want." My mother looked down at Emma with genuine disgust. "You don't belong here, child. You're not really family no matter what papers say. Biology matters more than legal documents." Emma's face crumpled. She turned to me with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Daddy, why doesn't Grandma love me?" Those words hit me like a physical blow. This beautiful, intelligent, loving child who called me Daddy with such trust didn't understand why her grandmother rejected her existence. "Choose Anderson," Patricia announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You can have that child, or you can have your real family. But you cannot have both. I will not pretend that adoption creates genuine family bonds." The entire room held its breath. 35 relatives waited for my response, some nodding in agreement with Patricia, others looking uncomfortable but remaining silent. My own family was forcing me to choose between my daughter and their approval. I knelt beside Emma, wiping her tears with my thumbs. "We're going home, sweetheart, right now." "But what about the party?" she asked. "The real party will be at our house," I promised her, "with people who love you exactly as you are." As we gathered our coats, I caught fragments of whispered conversations, relatives discussing whether I'd come to my senses and return the child after tonight's wake-up call. My mother had succeeded in turning our family gathering into an intervention designed to shame me into abandoning my daughter. But Patricia had made one crucial miscalculation. She assumed I'd choose their conditional love over Emma's unconditional trust. She was about to discover how wrong she could be. 3 days after the New Year's disaster, I started paying attention to details I'd previously overlooked. Jessica mentioned receiving strange phone calls where the caller hung up immediately. Emma's teacher asked if everything was stable at home because someone had inquired about her academic performance and behavior patterns. I began documenting these incidents, starting with a simple notebook where I recorded dates, times, and conversations. What started as casual record keeping quickly revealed a disturbing pattern stretching back 6 months. On Thursday morning, I decided to visit Patricia unannounced. She lived 12 minutes away in the same neighborhood where I'd grown up in a brick colonial surrounded by mature maple trees. I parked across the street and watched her routine for 2 hours before approaching. "Anderson, what brings you here?" she asked when she opened the front door. Her smile looked forced artificial. "Just wanted to talk about what happened on New Year's Eve," I replied, stepping inside without invitation. Her living room remained exactly as I remembered from childhood, with the same floral wallpaper and antique furniture. But now I noticed Addition's manila folders stacked on her writing desk, sticky notes covering her calendar, and what appeared to be research materials spread across the coffee table. While Patricia prepared tea in the kitchen, I examined the documents she'd left visible. My blood ran cold as I read printouts about failed adoptions and returning adopted children to the system. She'd highlighted phrases like disrupted placements and incompatible family dynamics. One folder contained photographs of Emma taken without my knowledge during our visits here. Another held printed emails between Patricia and someone named Margaret Thornton at the adoption agency we'd worked with 3 years ago. "Your tea is ready," Patricia called from the kitchen. I quickly photographed several documents with my phone before joining her at the small dining table. She'd prepared Earl Grey in her finest china, the same set she'd used for special occasions throughout my childhood. "Mother, I need to understand what happened the other night." Patricia set down her teacup carefully. "Anderson, I've been researching extensively about adoption outcomes. The statistics are quite sobering regarding children who've experienced trauma in their early years. Emma didn't experience trauma. She was placed in foster care because her birth mother was 16 and couldn't provide adequate care." "Precisely my point," Patricia continued. "Children from unstable backgrounds carry genetic predispositions toward problematic behavior. I've been corresponding with experts in child psychology who confirm these patterns." My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Found something in the mailbox. Come home immediately." "I should get going," I told Patricia, standing abruptly. Her expression shifted slightly. "Anderson, I hope you'll seriously consider what I've shared. It's not too late to make better choices for your future." Driving home, my hands shook on the steering wheel. My mother hadn't just rejected Emma impulsively. She'd been researching ways to remove my daughter from our family for months. Jessica met me at the front door holding a thick manila envelope addressed to Emma in childish handwriting. "This was buried under bills and advertisements," Jessica explained. "Look at the postmark. It's from November." Inside were handmade birthday cards from Emma's former foster siblings, along with a letter from her previous foster mother asking how she was adjusting to her forever family. The cards were signed by children who remembered Emma with obvious affection. Patricia's been intercepting our mail, I realized. Emma never received any of this. That evening, while Emma completed homework at the kitchen table, Jessica and I examined all the evidence I'd photographed. The emails revealed Patricia's attempts to convince the adoption agency that our placement was unsuitable and should be reconsidered. One email particularly chilled me. I believe my son was emotionally manipulated into this adoption. The child displays concerning behavioral patterns that suggest future problems. I'm requesting guidance on the proper procedures for reversing this placement in the best interests of all parties involved. Margaret Thornton's responses were professional, but firm, explaining that adoptions couldn't be reversed based on family disapproval and that Emma's placement was legally permanent and successful according to all metrics. But Patricia's final email in the chain made my stomach drop. If the agency cannot provide assistance, I will pursue alternative solutions. This situation requires intervention before permanent damage occurs to my family. I showed Jessica the photographs of research materials about failed adoptions. Together, we realized Patricia wasn't just disapproving of Emma. She was actively plotting to remove her from our lives. Anderson, Jessica said quietly, I think she's been building a case against us. All those questions about our finances, Emma's grades, our marriage stability, she's been gathering ammunition. The next morning, I called Margaret Thornton directly. After explaining the situation, she confirmed that Patricia had been contacting their office repeatedly over the past 4 months. Mr. Anderson, I should inform you that someone matching your mother's description has also been asking questions about contacting Emma's birth mother. We don't provide that information, but she's been quite persistent. My blood turned to ice. What kind of questions? She wanted to know if birth parents ever changed their minds about relinquishment. She asked about the legal process for undoing adoptions. Most concerning, she inquired about whether financial incentives might persuade a birth parent to reclaim parental rights. I thanked Margaret and hung up, my worst fears confirmed. Patricia wasn't just trying to make Emma feel unwelcome. She was actively working to orchestrate her removal from our family through manipulation of the birth mother. That afternoon, I hired a private investigator to find out exactly what my mother had been planning. Within 48 hours, he returned with information that staggered me. Patricia had located Emma's birth mother through social media and public records. She'd been making contact for 3 weeks, presenting herself as a concerned grandmother worried about Emma's well-being in our unstable home. But the most shocking discovery came when the investigator played me a recorded phone conversation he'd obtained through legal channels. Patricia's voice was unmistakable. I can offer you $50,000 to reclaim your daughter. My son is unfit to parent, and this child deserves to be with her real mother. I've documented evidence of his inadequacies, and I'll provide additional financial support for legal fees. My mother had been attempting to purchase my daughter's removal from our family. The recording continued with Patricia scheduling a meeting with Emma's birth mother for the day after New Year's Eve. She planned to bring Emma to this meeting and pressure her to choose her birth mother over our family. I sat in my car outside the investigator's office, listening to my mother plotting to destroy my family's happiness. But I also felt something else growing inside me: determination. Patricia had declared war on my daughter, but she'd made one critical error. She documented her own crimes. Friday morning, I arrived at Patricia's house with printed copies of every email, photograph, and recording the private investigator had obtained. My mother answered the door in her bathrobe, clearly surprised by my 7:30 arrival. Anderson, this is highly unusual. I haven't even had my coffee yet. We need to talk right now. I followed her into the kitchen, where she began her morning routine with deliberate slowness, as if maintaining normal patterns could control the situation. Mother, I know about Margaret Thornton. I know about Emma's birth mother. I know about the $50,000 offer. Patricia's coffee mug paused halfway to her lips. Her composure cracked slightly, but she recovered quickly. I have no idea what you're talking about. I spread the printed emails across her kitchen table. These are your communications with the adoption agency. This is your correspondence with Emma's birth mother. These are photographs you took of Emma without my permission. Patricia examined the documents with growing agitation. When she reached the transcript of her recorded phone conversation, her face flushed deep red. "How dare you spy on me? How dare you try to steal my daughter?" The pretense dropped completely. Patricia slammed her coffee mug on the counter, shattering the handle. "That child is not your daughter. She's a foster placement that you allowed to become permanent because you were too weak to make hard decisions. I've been trying to fix your mistake before it ruins your entire future. Emma is legally adopted. She's been my daughter for 3 years." "Legal documents don't create real family bonds, Anderson. That girl has bad genetics from irresponsible parents. She'll cause nothing but trouble as she gets older." I stared at my mother, seeing a stranger. "You've been sabotaging my life for months. You convinced Mark not to invite us to Christmas. You've been telling people Emma has behavioral problems. You intercepted her mail from her foster family." Patricia straightened her shoulders defensively. "I did what was necessary to protect this family from a disastrous situation. You were thinking with your emotions instead of logic. What about my first marriage? Did you sabotage that too?" The question hung in the air for several seconds. Patricia's silence provided the answer. "You did," I realized. "You spread rumors about Karen to Dad, didn't you? You convinced him she was unstable. Karen was completely wrong for you. She had no respect for family traditions or proper values. I simply helped you see the truth." The scope of her manipulation stretched back years. My mother had been controlling my relationships, my career decisions, even my living situation through calculated interference. "You've been keeping me dependent on you," I continued. "Every time I got close to financial independence, something went wrong. Potential employers suddenly lost interest. Opportunities disappeared mysteriously." Patricia's expression grew cold and calculating. "I protected you from making mistakes that would have taken you away from family. Everything I did was for your own good. And now you're trying to take Emma away for my own good." "Exactly. That child will drain your resources, cause problems in any future marriage, and prevent you from having real children with proper genetics." I felt physically sick hearing her describe Emma as a burden to be discarded. "Mother Emma is my real child. I love her completely and unconditionally." "Love isn't enough, Anderson. Practical considerations matter more than sentimental feelings." I gathered the documents from her table. "The meeting with Emma's birth mother is canceled. You will never contact her again." Patricia laughed bitterly. "You're too late. The meeting is scheduled for tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. I've already arranged everything. Then you'll be meeting alone because Emma won't be there. If you don't bring that child tomorrow, I'll call Child Protective Services. I've documented evidence of your inadequate parenting, financial instability, and emotional unsuitability for adoption." She opened a file cabinet and withdrew a thick folder labeled Anderson Investigation. Inside were photographs of our house, taken from various angles, copies of our financial records, obtained through unknown means, and what appeared to be surveillance notes about our daily routines. "You've been stalking us. I've been documenting the truth about your situation. This folder shows that you're barely managing financially, that your marriage shows signs of stress, and that the child displays concerning behavioral patterns." I flipped through pages of typed observations about Emma's behavior during family visits. Patricia had documented every moment Emma appeared tired, distracted, or emotional, then framed these normal childhood states as evidence of psychological problems. "You've been drugging my coffee during visits, haven't you? To make me appear unstable on your recordings?" Patricia's smug expression confirmed my suspicion. "Mild sedatives to help you relax. You always seem so tense during family gatherings. You've been committing multiple crimes, Mother. Fraud, harassment, stalking, drugging someone without consent. I've been protecting my family from destruction. Tomorrow morning, you'll bring that child to meet her real mother, or I'll destroy your reputation in this community so thoroughly that you'll have no choice but to move away and start over." I stood up from the kitchen table, my decision crystallizing. "You're absolutely right about one thing, Mother. Tomorrow morning will change everything. but not the way you expect. What does that mean? You'll find out soon enough. I left Patricia standing in her kitchen surrounded by the evidence of her obsessive campaign against my family. But she'd revealed something crucial during our confrontation. She genuinely believed her actions were justified and legal. Her arrogance would be her downfall. Driving home, I called the family attorney Jessica, and I had consulted when finalizing Emma's adoption. After explaining the situation and sending him photographs of Patricia's documentation, he confirmed what I'd suspected. Anderson, your mother has committed several felonies. The drugging alone constitutes assault. The financial bribes represent attempted fraud. The surveillance and documentation indicate stalking under Ohio law. What can we do? Quite a lot, actually. Her own records will serve as evidence against her. I recommend we contact law enforcement immediately. That evening, Jessica and I sat Emma down for a gentle conversation about what had been happening. Sweetheart, Grandma Patricia has been making some very poor choices about our family. She's been trying to cause problems between us. Emma nodded seriously. I know she doesn't like me, Daddy, but I don't understand why. Sometimes adults make mistakes when they're scared of change, Jessica explained. Grandma Patricia was scared that loving you might mean loving us less. But that's silly, Emma replied. Love gets bigger when you share it, not smaller. Her simple wisdom highlighted the tragedy of Patricia's choices. An 8-year-old understood family love better than my 60-year-old mother. Tomorrow might be a difficult day, I told Emma. But I want you to know that no matter what happens, you are our daughter forever. Nothing and no one can change that. Emma hugged us both tightly. I love you too, Daddy, and Mommy, and I hope someday Grandma Patricia learns how to love better. Her forgiveness and hope for Patricia's redemption humbled me completely. My daughter possessed more grace than the adults who'd tried to reject her. But grace didn't mean accepting abuse. Tomorrow morning, Patricia would learn that her elaborate schemes had backfired in ways she never imagined possible. Saturday morning began with Patricia calling my phone at 6:45, an hour and 15 minutes before our scheduled meeting. I trust you're preparing Emma for today's transition, she said without preamble. We'll be there, I replied carefully. Excellent. I've arranged for Emma's birth mother to bring legal documentation. This process will be much smoother than I initially anticipated. After hanging up, I continued implementing the plan Jessica and I had developed with our attorney. While Patricia believed she was orchestrating Emma's removal from our family, we were actually preparing to end her harassment permanently. At 8 o'clock, Detective Sarah Morrison arrived at our house to review the evidence we'd collected. She examined Patricia's documentation with professional interest, particularly the photographs taken without our knowledge, and the recorded conversations where Patricia admitted to drugging me. Mrs. Anderson has provided excellent evidence of her own criminal behavior, Detective Morrison observed. These records will make prosecution straightforward. Our attorney Robert Chen arrived 30 minutes later with additional documentation. He'd spent Friday afternoon researching Ohio statutes regarding adoption interference and discovered that Patricia's actions qualified as multiple felonies. The financial bribes alone constitute attempted fraud in the first degree, he explained. Combined with stalking, harassment, and assault charges, she's facing significant prison time. At 9:15, we received confirmation that Emma's birth mother, Linda Walsh, had arrived at the meeting location. Patricia had chosen a family restaurant 20 minutes from our house. Linda was accompanied by a social worker and an attorney. We'd arranged to explain the legal realities of Patricia's scheme. Is Emma ready? Detective Morrison asked. I looked at my daughter, who was dressed in her favorite purple sweater and jeans. She appeared calm but curious about the unusual activity in our house. Emma, we're going to meet some people who want to talk about our family. You don't need to say anything unless you want to, and we'll be with you the entire time. Okay, Daddy, are you sure everything will be all right? I'm absolutely certain. At 9:45, our convoy left for the restaurant. Detective Morrison drove her unmarked police car, followed by Robert Chen in his sedan, then Jessica, Emma, and me in our minivan. 2 additional police units would meet us at the location. Patricia had chosen poorly. The restaurant she'd selected for her dramatic intervention was public enough to prevent us from leaving easily, but also provided perfect witnesses for her criminal behavior. We arrived to find Patricia already seated at a large table near the back of the dining area. She'd arranged chairs in a specific pattern with Emma's birth mother, Linda, positioned directly across from where she expected Emma to sit. The setup looked like an ambush. Patricia wore her most formal dress and had styled her hair perfectly. She clearly viewed this meeting as her moment of triumph. Linda Walsh appeared nervous and confused. She was younger than I'd expected, probably 25 now, with short brown hair and anxious eyes. The attorney beside her was taking notes constantly. "Anderson, right on time," Patricia announced as we approached the table. "Emma, come sit next to your real mother." Detective Morrison stepped forward and displayed her badge. "Patricia Anderson, you're under arrest for stalking, harassment, attempted fraud, and assault." The color drained from my mother's face as Detective Morrison began reading her rights. Other diners turned to watch the drama unfolding, but remained at a respectful distance. "This is ridiculous," Patricia stammered. "I was helping my son correct a mistake." "Ma'am, your own documentation proves that you've been stalking this family for months, attempting to bribe a birth mother to reclaim parental rights and admitting to drugging someone without consent." Robert Chen opened his briefcase and withdrew copies of Patricia's emails, photographs, and surveillance notes. "These are your own records, Mrs. Anderson. You documented every crime you committed." Linda Walsh stood up slowly. "Mrs. Anderson, I need to explain something. I never intended to reclaim Emma. Your phone calls were confusing and pressuring, but I never agreed to take my daughter back." Patricia looked stunned. "But we arranged everything. The money, the legal papers, the transition plan." "No, ma'am, we didn't. I came here today to ask you to stop contacting me and to meet the family who adopted my daughter. I wanted to see that she was happy and loved." Linda knelt beside Emma's chair. "Sweetheart, I want you to know that I placed you for adoption because I loved you. Your daddy and mommy give you everything I couldn't provide when you were little." Emma studied Linda's face carefully. "Are you sad that I live with my family now?" "Oh no, honey. I'm happy that you have such a wonderful family who loves you so much." Patricia tried to interrupt. "This is all wrong. You don't understand the situation properly." Detective Morrison placed handcuffs on Patricia's wrists. "Mrs. Anderson, you have the right to remain silent." As police led my mother from the restaurant, she continued protesting her innocence and insisting that everyone was making a terrible mistake. Linda Walsh spent another hour with us answering Emma's questions about her birth and early life. She brought photographs of Emma as a baby and shared memories of the difficult decision to place her for adoption. "I think about you often," Linda told Emma, "but I know you're exactly where you belong." Emma hugged Linda goodbye with natural affection. "Thank you for making sure I found my real family." The drive home felt surreal. Emma chattered about meeting Linda and asked thoughtful questions about adoption and birth mothers. She seemed to understand that Linda's love for her included letting her go to parents who could provide better opportunities. "Daddy, why was Grandma Patricia so confused about our family?" Emma asked as we pulled into our driveway. "Sometimes adults get scared about things they don't understand," I explained. "Grandma Patricia was scared that loving you might change our family in ways she couldn't control." "But change isn't always bad," Emma replied. "When I came to live with you, everything changed, but it got better." That evening, Robert Chen called with updates about Patricia's legal situation. She'd been released on bail but faced serious charges that could result in years of prison time. "More importantly," he continued, "the judge issued a restraining order preventing any contact with you, Jessica or Emma, for 5 years minimum. She cannot come to your home, contact you by phone or email, or communicate through third parties." I felt enormous relief knowing Emma would be protected from further harassment. "What happens now?" Jessica asked. Patricia will face trial for multiple felonies. Her own documentation makes conviction virtually certain. She created a paper trail that prosecutors dream about. That night, as I tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at me with serious eyes. "Daddy, do you think Grandma Patricia will learn to love better someday?" "I hope so, sweetheart, but even if she doesn't, it won't change how much we love you." Emma smiled sleepily. "I know. Love doesn't disappear just because someone else doesn't understand it." As I turned off her bedroom light, I marveled at my daughter's wisdom and resilience. Patricia's elaborate scheme to remove Emma from our family had instead strengthened our bonds and eliminated the threat she posed. But the best part was watching Emma handle the entire situation with grace, maturity, and forgiveness that shamed the adults who tried to hurt her. Monday morning brought unexpected developments that shifted our legal strategy from defensive to offensive. Robert Chen called with news that Patricia's private investigator had contacted him directly. His name is David Fletcher, and he's extremely uncomfortable with the requests your mother made, Robert explained. He wants to cooperate fully with authorities and provide testimony about her illegal surveillance activities. David Fletcher met with us Tuesday afternoon at Robert's office. He was a professional investigator with 20 years of experience, and Patricia's case clearly troubled him deeply. "I accepted the initial assignment because she claimed to be concerned about her granddaughter's welfare," Fletcher explained. "But her requests became increasingly inappropriate and potentially illegal." He opened a thick file containing photographs, surveillance reports, and audio recordings Patricia had commissioned over 6 months. "She wanted me to document evidence that would make you appear unfit as parents. When I told her your family seemed stable and loving, she became agitated and demanded I look harder for problems." The photographs showed our daily routines: Emma walking to school, Jessica grocery shopping, family dinners, visible through our kitchen window. Patricia had been monitoring our private lives obsessively. "Mrs. Anderson specifically requested recordings of your conversations inside your home. When I explained that would require illegal wiretapping, she offered to pay double my normal fees." "Did you install any surveillance equipment?" Detective Morrison asked. "Absolutely not. But she indicated she had other methods for recording conversations. She mentioned drugging your coffee during visits to make you appear unstable on recordings she was making herself." Jessica and I exchanged glances. Patricia's confession about sedating me wasn't just morally reprehensible, it was evidence of premeditated assault. Fletcher continued. "She also asked me to research your financial records, employment history, and medical information. When I refused to obtain private records illegally, she hired additional investigators who were less ethical." Robert leaned forward. "Do you have names and contact information for these other investigators?" "Yes, and I believe they're willing to cooperate with authorities. Mrs. Anderson's behavior made everyone uncomfortable." Over the following days, Robert assembled a comprehensive case that revealed the full scope of Patricia's harassment campaign. She'd hired multiple investigators, attempted to bribe Emma's birth mother, forged documents, intercepted our mail, and committed assault by drugging me without consent. But the most shocking discovery came when Detective Morrison obtained a search warrant for Patricia's house. "Anderson, you need to see what we found," Detective Morrison called Thursday evening. We met at Patricia's house, which had been sealed as a crime scene. Inside, investigators had discovered an entire room dedicated to monitoring our family. Photographs of Emma covered one wall like a surveillance board. Patricia had marked them with red ink, noting Emma's facial expressions and body language during family visits. She'd created psychological profiles attempting to prove Emma was emotionally disturbed. Another wall contained a detailed timeline of our marriage with Patricia's notes about potential stress points and opportunities to create problems between Jessica and me. Most disturbing was a folder labeled Operation Emma Removal, containing a step-by-step plan to separate Emma from our family. Patricia had researched legal precedents, contacted adoption reversal specialists, and budgeted $50,000 for bribes and legal fees. "She was completely obsessed," Detective Morrison observed. This goes far beyond normal family disagreement. Jessica discovered journals where Patricia had written detailed fantasies about Emma being returned to foster care. She'd imagined scenarios where Emma would thank her for saving her from our family. This is pathological behavior, Robert concluded. Patricia wasn't just disapproving of Emma. She developed genuine delusions about rescuing her from imaginary abuse. Thursday evening brought another surprise, a phone call from my father. "Anderson, I need to see you immediately. Your mother has been lying to me for months." I drove to my parents' house where my father waited with his own shocking revelations. "Patricia told me you were struggling financially and needed help," he explained. "She convinced me to loan you money that you never requested. When I asked why you hadn't thanked me, she said you were too proud to acknowledge the assistance." "Dad, I never received any money from you." "I know that now. Patricia intercepted the checks and forged your signature on the deposit slips. She's been stealing from both of us." He showed me bank records proving Patricia had embezzled $12,000 over 8 months by claiming I needed financial assistance for Emma's medical expenses and education costs. "She also forged my signature on legal documents," my father continued. "Patricia tried to change my will to exclude Emma as a beneficiary, claiming I requested the modification." "How did you discover this?" "Our attorney called to confirm the changes. When I told him I never authorized modifications to my will, he realized Patricia had been impersonating me." The scope of Patricia's criminal behavior expanded daily. She'd committed identity theft, forgery, embezzlement, and fraud in addition to her harassment campaign against Emma. Friday morning, Robert filed additional charges against Patricia based on the evidence we'd discovered. The prosecutor handling the case expressed confidence about securing convictions on all counts. "Mrs. Anderson documented her own crimes meticulously," the prosecutor explained. "Her journals, emails, and surveillance materials provide overwhelming evidence of criminal intent and systematic harassment." That afternoon, Patricia's bail was revoked due to the additional charges. She would remain in jail pending trial, eliminating any possibility of further harassment. But the most satisfying development came when several family members contacted me to apologize for their behavior on New Year's Eve. My sister Sarah called first. "Anderson, I'm so sorry. Mom convinced me that Emma had behavioral problems and might hurt our children. I realize now how completely wrong that was. My brother Mark apologized for uninviting us from Christmas. Patricia told me you were having marriage problems and that bringing Emma would create drama. I should have talked to you directly instead of listening to her manipulation." One by one, relatives who'd witnessed Emma's humiliation on New Year's Eve called to express regret and ask forgiveness. They'd been manipulated by Patricia's lies, but they acknowledged their failure to defend an innocent child. Emma handled these conversations with remarkable grace, accepting apologies and expressing interest in rebuilding relationships with family members who wanted to include her genuinely. "People make mistakes when they're confused," she told me after speaking with her Aunt Sarah. "The important thing is that they want to fix their mistakes." My daughter's capacity for forgiveness amazed me. Despite experiencing rejection and cruelty from Patricia, Emma maintained hope that people could learn to love better. As we prepared for Patricia's trial, I felt confident that justice would be served. But more importantly, Emma was safe from further harassment, and our family had emerged stronger from Patricia's attacks. The woman who'd tried to destroy our happiness had instead revealed the unbreakable bonds of love that adoption had created. Emma wasn't just legally our daughter, she was completely and permanently part of our family in every way that mattered. 6 weeks after Patricia's arrest, her trial began in Hamilton County Courthouse. The prosecution had assembled an overwhelming case using her own documentation as primary evidence. I testified, first describing years of Patricia's manipulation and the escalating harassment campaign against Emma. The prosecutor played recordings where Patricia admitted to drugging me and attempting to bribe Emma's birth mother. Jessica testified about the intercepted male mysterious phone calls and the gradual isolation we'd experienced as family members turned against us based on Patricia's lies. David Fletcher provided detailed testimony about Patricia's illegal surveillance requests, and her obsessive behavior during their professional relationship. But the most compelling evidence came from Patricia herself. The prosecution presented her journals, emails, surveillance photographs, and detailed plans for Operation Emma removal. Patricia's defense attorney argued that she was a concerned grandmother trying to protect her family from a problematic adoption. But Patricia's own words contradicted this narrative completely. In one journal entry, she'd written, "The child must be removed before she corrupts our family permanently. I will use whatever methods necessary to achieve this goal." Another entry revealed her true feelings about Emma. "This inferior child with defective genetics has contaminated our bloodline. I refuse to pretend she belongs in our family." The prosecution played a recording Patricia had made during one of our visits, where she could be heard commenting on Emma's behavior. "Look how she manipulates Anderson with those fake tears. These foster children learn manipulation tactics early." On the recording, Emma was simply asking for help reaching a book on a high shelf. Linda Walsh testified about Patricia's pressure tactics and inappropriate financial offers. She described feeling threatened and confused by Patricia's insistence that Emma needed to be returned to her. "Mrs. Anderson told me that Emma was being abused and neglected," Linda testified. "She showed me photographs that she claimed proved the child was unhappy. But looking at those same photographs now, I see a normal, healthy, loved little girl." The prosecution presented bank records proving Patricia had embezzled money from my father by claiming I needed financial assistance. They showed forged documents where she'd attempted to change his will without authorization. My father testified reluctantly but truthfully about Patricia's deception and financial crimes. "I trusted my wife completely," he said sadly. "I never imagined she was capable of stealing from our son and lying so extensively about our granddaughter." The defense tried to argue that Patricia suffered from mental illness that explained her behavior. But the prosecution demonstrated that her actions were calculated and purposeful over many months. Patricia had researched legal strategies, hired multiple investigators, and implemented a systematic plan to remove Emma from our family. Her behavior showed clear intent and criminal sophistication, not mental illness. On the fourth day of trial, Patricia took the stand in her own defense. Her testimony proved disastrous. "That child does not belong in our family," she stated firmly. "Adoption creates artificial relationships that damage natural family bonds." The prosecutor asked, "Mrs. Anderson, do you believe Emma is your granddaughter?" "Absolutely not. She's a foster child who my son allowed to become legally attached to our family through poor judgment." "What did you hope to accomplish through your actions?" "I wanted to return her to her proper place so my son could focus on creating a real family with biological children." Patricia's complete lack of remorse shocked the courtroom. She showed no recognition that her behavior was criminal or harmful. When asked about drugging me, she replied, "Anderson was emotionally unstable about the adoption situation. I gave him mild sedatives to help him think more clearly." "Did you have his consent to drug him?" Parents don't need consent to help their adult children make better decisions. The prosecution presented recordings Patricia had made during our drugged conversations, where my speech was clearly impaired and my responses confused. Patricia's testimony continued for 2 days, during which she revealed the depth of her obsession and complete rejection of Emma as family. "I researched this extensively," Erie insisted. "Adopted children from troubled backgrounds inevitably cause problems. I was preventing future catastrophe." The jury deliberated for 3 hours before returning with guilty verdicts on all charges: stalking, harassment, attempted fraud, assault, embezzlement, forgery, and identity theft. During sentencing, the judge addressed Patricia directly. "Mrs. Anderson, you conducted a systematic campaign of harassment against an innocent child and her family. Your actions demonstrate calculated cruelty and complete disregard for the law." Patricia received 4 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. The judge also issued a permanent restraining order preventing any contact with our family. "This court finds your behavior toward your granddaughter particularly reprehensible," the judge continued. Emma is legally and permanently part of your son's family regardless of your personal disapproval. As police led Patricia from the courtroom, she maintained her defiant expression. She showed no remorse, no recognition of wrongdoing, and no acknowledgement of the pain she'd caused. But for the first time in months, I felt complete peace. Emma was safe from further harassment, and Patricia would face consequences for her criminal behavior. Outside the courthouse, Emma waited with Jessica and my father. She'd been excused from testifying due to her age, but she understood the trial's importance. "Is Grandma Patricia going to jail?" she asked. "Yes, sweetheart, for a long time." Emma considered this seriously. "I hope she learns to be kinder while she's there." Even after everything Patricia had done, Emma maintained compassion for the woman who'd tried to destroy her place in our family. That evening, we celebrated quietly at home with takeout pizza and Emma's favorite ice cream. The legal battle was over, and our family could focus on healing and moving forward. My father joined us for dinner, beginning the process of rebuilding relationships damaged by Patricia's manipulation. "Emma," he said carefully, "I owe you an apology. I should have stood up for you when your grandmother was being cruel." Emma hugged him tightly. "It's okay, Grandpa. You were tricked by someone who was very good at lying." "You're a remarkable young lady," he replied. "I'm proud to be your grandfather." As we tucked Emma into bed that night, she reflected on the day's events. "Daddy, do you think Grandma Patricia will ever understand that families can be made in different ways?" "I don't know, sweetheart, but it doesn't matter what she thinks anymore. What matters is that we know we're a real family." "The realest family ever," Emma agreed sleepily. Patricia's elaborate scheme to separate us had failed completely. Instead of destroying our family, her attacks had strengthened our bonds and eliminated the threat she posed to our happiness. Justice had been served, but more importantly, love had triumphed over hatred, and truth had conquered manipulation. 18 months later, our lives had transformed completely. Emma flourished in 4th grade, making honor roll and joining the school soccer team. She developed close friendships with classmates whose families embraced her completely, understanding that love creates family more powerfully than genetics. Jessica and I had grown closer through surviving Patricia's attacks. Facing that crisis together as united parents strengthened our marriage and deepened our commitment to protecting Emma's happiness. My relationship with my father improved dramatically once Patricia's manipulation ended. He spent weekends with us regularly, teaching Emma to fish and sharing stories about our family's history that included her completely. "Your grandmother would have loved Emma," he told me one Saturday afternoon, referring to the woman whose dining room table had witnessed that terrible New Year's Eve confrontation. "She always said family was about who chose to love you, not just who shared your blood." Several relatives apologized formally and began building genuine relationships with Emma. My sister Sarah invited us to family gatherings, where Emma was included naturally and warmly. My brother Mark included Emma in his children's birthday parties and holiday celebrations. Emma handled these reconciliations with remarkable grace, accepting apologies without holding grudges and embracing family members who demonstrated sincere love for her. But the most meaningful healing came through unexpected channels. I started a support group for adoptive families facing rejection from extended relatives. Meeting monthly at our church, we shared strategies for protecting children from family members who refused to accept adoption as legitimate family formation. "Adoption creates real families," I would tell new group members. When relatives reject adopted children, they're rejecting love itself. Our group grew from 5 families to 23 over 18 months. We provided practical advice about legal protection, emotional support for children experiencing rejection, and resources for healing damaged relationships. Emma often attended meetings, sharing her perspective with other adopted children who faced similar challenges. "Some people get confused about how families work," she would explain to younger children, "but you can't let their confusion make you doubt your own family." Her wisdom and resilience inspired other families dealing with adoption rejection. Meanwhile, Patricia served her prison sentence in Ohio Reformatory for Women. According to my father, she participated in court-mandated therapy, but showed little progress toward understanding the impact of her behavior. Prison counselors reported that Patricia maintained her belief that adoption was inferior to biological family relationships. She expressed no remorse for her criminal actions and continued to view Emma as an intruder in our family. The therapists say she has narcissistic personality disorder with obsessive features, my father explained during one of our weekend visits. They don't expect significant change in her attitudes. I felt sadness for Patricia, trapped in her rigid thinking and unable to experience the joy Emma brought to our lives. But I no longer felt anger toward her. "Daddy, do you miss Grandma Patricia?" Emma asked one evening as we worked on homework together. "I miss the person I thought she was," I replied honestly. "But I don't miss the person she actually turned out to be." "Maybe prison will teach her to think differently," Emma suggested hopefully. "Maybe, but even if it doesn't, we can't let her choices control our happiness." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "Right, we have to focus on being the best family we can be." Our family continued growing stronger through deliberate choices to prioritize love, honesty, and mutual support. Emma's adoption had taught us that family bonds created through conscious commitment often prove more durable than relationships based purely on biology. The legal victories provided closure, but the real triumph was watching Emma develop confidence in her permanent place within our family. She never again questioned whether she belonged with us. 2 years after Patricia's sentencing, Emma wrote a school essay about family that brought tears to my eyes. "My family might look different from some families because I'm adopted, but our love is exactly the same. My parents chose me specifically to be their daughter, which makes me extra special." Some people don't understand that adoption creates real families, but that's because they haven't learned about different kinds of love yet. I hope they learn someday, because love is the most important thing in the world. Reading her words, I realized that Patricia's attacks had failed completely. Emma understood her value within our family and felt secure in our love for her. The woman who'd tried to convince Emma she didn't belong had instead taught her how deeply she was wanted. Patricia's elaborate scheme to remove Emma from our lives had backfired in every possible way. Instead of creating doubt about adoption, she'd strengthened Emma's confidence in her place as our daughter. Instead of dividing our family, she'd united us against external threats. Instead of exposing weaknesses in our relationships, she'd revealed the unbreakable bonds love had created. On Emma's 11th birthday, 3 years after that terrible New Year's Eve, we celebrated with a house full of family and friends who cherished her completely. She received gifts cards and expressions of love from relatives who now understood that adoption had added joy to our family, not complications. As I watched Emma blow out her birthday candles surrounded by people who valued her exactly as she was, I reflected on the lesson Patricia's hatred had taught us about the true nature of family. Family isn't determined by genetics or blood relations. Family is created through daily choices to love, support, and protect one another. Family grows through commitment, sacrifice, and the decision to include others in our hearts permanently. Emma had been my daughter from the moment we brought her home 3 years earlier, but Patricia's attacks had proven that our bond was unbreakable. Love had triumphed over prejudice, truth had conquered manipulation, and justice had protected the innocent. Sometimes the greatest threats to our happiness become the catalyst for our greatest growth. Patricia intended to destroy our family, but instead revealed how strong love could make us. The seat at our table had always belonged to Emma, regardless of Patricia's rejection. Love creates family, and love had made Emma our daughter in every way that truly matters. As Emma made her birthday wish, I knew she was dreaming of the future with complete confidence that she would face it surrounded by family who chose to love her every single day. That's the real meaning of family, the lesson Patricia never learned, and the truth that transformed our lives forever. Now I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever faced family members who rejected someone you love? How did you protect your loved ones while maintaining your own integrity? Share your experiences in the comments below, because your story might help other families facing similar challenges. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button to let me know it resonated with you. Subscribe to hear more stories about love triumphing over adversity. And don't forget to share this with anyone who needs to be reminded that real families are built on love, not just biology. Thank you for listening to our journey, and remember that love always finds a way to protect what matters most. Until next time, keep choosing love over fear, truth over convenience, and family over everything else.